Moving on to the presidential oration, the chairpersons for this session will be Dr. V.D. Sinha and Dr. Ashish Suri, who are present here, and Dr.
Excellent,
Rajneesh
Manmohan.
Kachara will be
Super.
joining us virtually. The introduction to the speaker will be given by Dr. Manmohan Singh. Sir, if I may please request you to come on the stage. The presidential oration shall be delivered by Dr. Sarat Chandra, and the speaker will be introduced by Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Welcome everybody, and welcome to this the prestigious presidential oration for the Skull-Based Society of India 2021. So it is the honor to introduce Professor P. Sarat Chandra. He is the president of Skull-Based Surgery Society of India now. So there is no need to have the further introduction because he is a well-known figure not only in India but the world over. And his current affiliation is he's the current professor and unit head and the Department of Neurosurgery AIIMS. I'm also working with him now in the same unit. He's the in charge of the magnetic encephalography as well as the brain mapping resources unit facility in the National Brain Research Center, Manesar, Delhi. So if we look at his early life, he was born in Cuttack, Odisha on 21st of September 1968. And he did his schooling from the St. Vincent's Convent, Brahmpur, Odisha. And he did his senior secondary from the KV, Sambalpur. And he did his MBBS from the MKCG Medical College, Brahmpur, Odisha. And he is the recipient of the Pfizer Gold Medal during his graduation. And he was judged the best outgoing student with honors with distinction in physiology, surgery, and the obstetric and gynecology. And he did his neurosurgery residencies from the NIMS Bangalore, and which is the one of the very good tertiary level referral center. And he was inspired by the Professor B.H. Das, Professor B. Chandramouli to take up the skull base and the CV junction anomalies, and which he has pursued throughout his life, and he has actually excelled in that. He joined the AIIMS way back in 1998, and he never looked back, and we know that how he has done well over these years. And he has operated more than 25,000 cases till now, and he has particularly specialized in the CV junction anomalies and the minimally invasive. And he's a surgeon par excellence in microneurosurgery and endoscopy, because I can vouch to that. I have been operated by him for my lumbar disc, and I still now for the last 12 years I am doing so well. So he has published over 500 papers, including the very high impact journal like the NEJM, Nature, Genomics, JNS, Neurosurgery. He has over 4,000 citations, over 9 patents, completed continuing 14 extramural research projects at AIIMS, and he's the current editor of the Neurology India. And these are his very few of his very high impact journal published article in the NEJM, in the Genome, in the Neurosurgery and other journals, and we need no introduction for that. And he is pioneer in establishing the most advanced epilepsy research lab at AIIMS, which is one of its own kind in the country, and it is the first. And his research interest includes the neuron connectomies, the GABA and NMDA receptors, microcellular neuronal connectivity, and the genomics, the genetics of the CV junction anomalies, biomechanics of the CV junction, and he has published over 100 pure research papers on that. And he has been a postdoc fellow at the University of California, Los Angeles, and he's a fellow of the National Academy of Science, Penry Fellow in Wickford University in USA, visiting professor INU Hanover, and he is also the adjunct professor in Erlangga University, Indonesia, and the visiting professor in Morocco. And he has held various positions in various societies of the country, and the list is very long, cannot be enumerated in one go. And he has been bestowed upon by the many awards, like the Pfizer Best Graduate Gold Medal Award in MBBS, then the Todekaro Award in Indian League Against Epilepsy, Sun Pharma Award, the Annual Research Orator Award in Jepmer Pondicherry, then AIIMS Excellency Award. So he has delivered a lot of lectures in international as well as the national level, and he in the more than 300 lectures till now. So if you look at, he has been a friend world over, and which include all of the giants of neurosurgery, and he has worked with them. And there's a few of his the photo collage with the various neurosurgeons of India. as well as in the international guests. And he has been now inaugurating a MEG facility in the brain mapping facility with the health minister in the National Brain Research Center at Manesar, which is one of its unique kind. And this is his now the, I would say that work where he's doing like in the Department of Neurosurgery AIMS. And okay, so this is a department. And if you look at that, this is the beloved parents. And unfortunately, Professor Sharath lost his father just last year, probably due to COVID. And this was a very sad event on his life. And but he has carried on. And his mother, she's a pediatrician. She's a retired. And now she does the social work in a very small village of Gopalpur in Odisha. And that is a Gopalpur on the beach. And she's taking care of the vaccination of 60 tribal village surrounding that area. And this is one of the, I think, the most wonderful philanthropic job she's doing now. And this is his family, like his old family photograph, the father, mother. Dr. Sharath's wife is one of the renowned neurologists and the dealing with the epilepsy. And she's also a world-known figure into that field. And his daughter is now pursuing a course of probably in psychiatry now. And I wish her the best of luck so that she can do as well as their parents have done till now. So I won't be taking more time, and we'll be inviting Professor Sharath for his lecture.
Thank you very much, Manmohan, for that kind introduction. And you are really very, very dear to me. Professor Sinha, Professor Suri, chairpersons, Professor Sanjeev Mishra, Honorable Director of this institute, faculty, colleagues. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to have an opportunity to give this oration, this prestigious oration of this prestigious society, Skull-Base Surgery Society of India. And I'm indebted to this society for having given me an opportunity to do so. So I would be speaking on a topic which may sound a bit funny, but I'm sure it will become clear as my lecture proceeds. But before I start speaking, I would like to mention few people on whose shoulders I have stood today in order to do whatever work I have done. So I would like to first acknowledge my teacher and mentor, Professor B.S. Das, who is an exceptionally brilliant neurosurgeon, a fine gentleman, a wonderful human being, who has been support to me right from the day I've joined as residency. Professor Shastri, again, a very highly academically oriented neurosurgeon, very integral in his approach. Professor B.A. Chandramouli, whom I found to be very quiet. He doesn't talk much, but again, he's a brilliant surgeon and a wonderful human being. Professor Timmappa Hegde, again, an amazing neurosurgeon, but also has taught me many more things apart from just neurosurgery in life, and particularly a spiritual approach to whole life itself. Professor Sampath and Professor Indra Devi, again, who have been instrumental in developing who I am today. When I joined AIMS in 1998, I was a bit hesitant because in South, AIMS was known as an institute which was only favoring its own students. So some of my colleagues did advise me that why do you want to go there? You will be an outsider. But when I joined AIMS, believe me, I have not seen a more democratic place than AIMS than anywhere in this country. I was welcomed with open arms. And in fact, just 3 days after I joined as faculty, Professor Tandon and Professor Banerjee hosted a party on our welcome. And then Professor V.S. Mehta, I would like to acknowledge, because he was a person who was instrumental in bringing me to AIMS or selecting me. Professor B.A. Sharma, who was like a breath of fresh air for the whole department because he comes from PGI Chandigarh, who is a wonderful mentor, friend, a brilliant neurosurgeon, and a very nice human being. Professor Mahapatra for his academic approach, for his scientific bent of mind, and for having teaching me a lot of things which I would have otherwise not learned. I would not complete my introduction without giving my thanks to the jewel in the crown, our Department of Neurosurgery at the All India Institute. And in this regard, I would like to acknowledge Professor Kale. And of course, Professor Suri is sitting here, who is a dear colleague and friend of mine. And then everybody from my unit, especially I would like to acknowledge like Manmohan, Deepak Agarwal, Shashwat, Kamaljit, Ramesh, Pankaj, Aman, Rajesh Meena, Satish. So everybody from my unit, and we work more like a family, and I'm indebted to all of them for having accepted me as a part of their group. Of course, I'd like to pay my homage and to my parents, thank my wife and my daughter. I couldn't have had a better family than this, and I'm very grateful to them. And of course, to the Lord above. So my oration starts with this story. I don't know how many of you have read this book. Can anybody raise your hand if you have read this book? So I can see one hand, which is good for me. I can see two hands, which is good for me. Otherwise, it would have spoiled my oration. But this is a story of four people. Two are Lilliputs and two are mice. And they were staying in a cheese station, hypothetical cheese station C. And they would go every day morning by 9 a.m., have their cheese comfortably, gossip, and come back by 5 p.m. And each of them had a different personality. So we had two mice, Sniff and Scurry, who could smell the change in air, and they were immediately ready to jump and go ahead with the change. Then we had Haw, who was startled by the change, but then he would slowly adjust to the change and then take up the change and accept the change. And then we had Hem, who would not know, who would be very, very resistant to any kind of change. So he wouldn't like change. He would like everything to be absolutely the same constant things, and any change happens, he would get really perturbed. So this is how they were staying. So one day the cheese runs out in the cheese station. So what happens next? So Sniff and Scurry immediately move out to search for new cheese. They do not even hesitate. They do not mind the criticisms. They do not even look back. They are not even worried about the dangers. They just run away. Haw stays for some time, is afraid, but then slowly adjusts to himself and then makes a journey to find new cheese. Hem stays back. He says, no, I'm sure the cheese is going to come back. Let me continue going to the cheese station. One day the cheese is going to come back. So if you look at life, most of us are like Hem, and to some extent like Haw, and very rarely we are like Sniff and Scurry. So this particular oration is a continuation of the journey of Haw, with whom I identify, on how he was initially afraid for change, but then decided that yes, one should go forward, accept the change, and embrace the change. So I will start with craniovertebral junction. So we know it's a very critical junction, and it's one of the most challenging pathologies that you could operate, and I started my training with Professor Das. And when I came to AIIMS, I would do something like 2 cases or 3 cases a week, multiple transorals and posterior fixations. But for a long time, we were only paying attention to the midline of what we see. And it gels well with what Plato has said, that things are not always seen as what they seem. The first appearance deceives many. The intelligence of a few perceives what has been carefully hidden. And it took us a long time to understand why does the dents keep on slipping inside it in order to cause symptoms. And it was only Professor Goyal who pointed this out. We were very happy in our cheese station C. We continued doing hundreds after hundreds cases of transorals and posterior fixation. We thought that there is nothing more to be done for this pathology. And then Professor Goyal pointed out that no, this is not correct. There is a different method to do this. And slowly we understood that. So I published a paper in neurosurgery where we described new indices, and we described 2 types of joints. And this was very well cited. And then we described all these new indices for the first time, which actually are based on the joint and not on the atlantoaxial dislocation in the center. And then more recently, one of my PhD students published this paper, where for the first time we showed that there were genetic mutation hits in approximately 80% of our population having congenital craniovertebral junction anomalies. And these show FBN1 gene mutations reported in Marfan syndrome. And we hypothesized that presence of sloping joints and weak ligaments are what is leading to constant slipping of dents backwards and upwards, causing cord compression. Overall, at this point, we realized that we need to adapt and change. So now how, when he was traveling in search of new cheese, he would put all these comments so that Hem could come and find him. And in one of the comments, he wrote that quicker you let go of the old cheese, the sooner you will find the new cheese. And here we understood that the basic pathology was that the dens was slipping back because of sloping joints and weak ligaments. And it is the joints which we need to tackle. So I had operated this case almost 15 years ago, and I was very proud of it. But today this would be a sad story because we want a reduction like this because craniovertebral junction is a deformity which is to be reduced. There are, of course, some indications for transoral, as I have published in this editorial in Neurosurgical Focus, but majority of them can be tackled from behind. So the fundamental rule is that if the C1 arch is not hospitalized, we do a Goel-Harms technique where we do a C1, C2 fixation. Otherwise, when the C1 arch is hospitalized, there is severe compression, we have to do a technique called as DCER, which we have described for the first time. And we published this in Neurosurgery. And right now we are very happy that a lot of my colleagues as well as a lot of neurosurgeons across this country have started doing this technique. So fundamentally, we put a spacer, apply compressive forces between OC1 and C2, which leads to reduction of not only atlantoaxial dislocation, but also basilar invagination. And we always place an occipital screw because as per the law of levers, the further you are from the pivot, the less is the stress between the screw and the bone. And again, we published this technique in some more papers. And DCR corrects the spinal alignment, as we have shown in our studies. It corrects every aspect of spinal alignment. So it's not just a focal correction, but it is a complete holistic correction of the spine. So at this point, Harv understood many things. He understood that change happens. He should anticipate change, monitor change. And at this point, we realized that what do we do if the joints become vertical? Now here we published a new technique which is called as extra-articular distraction, again published in Neurosurgery, and this was the editor's choice. And again another paper in Neurology India, where we showed that it is okay as long as the joint is parallel to the ground, it is perfect. But when the joint becomes inclined, you can do something like joint remodeling. So this is a short video to show how you can do joint remodeling, where you drill the joint, place a spacer, and then provide compressive forces between the OC1 and C2 in order to correct the AD. That has been the fundamental of the DCR technique. But what do you do when it is vertical? So that is where we realize that old beliefs do not lead you to chase new cheese. So you cannot place a spacer in a vertical joint. It's just not possible. And that's where we discovered the presence of a pseudo joint, which happens because of the approximation of the lower surface of the occiput with the superior surface of the pars. And you can see there's a severe compression, which has been very nicely reduced by placement of spacer in the pseudo joint. Few more cases, you can see very severe compression. Now we put a spacer here, it didn't reduce completely, and we increased the height of the spacer. And that led to complete correction. So if you're not able to reduce it completely, we understood that by increasing the height of the spacer, you are increasing the advantage of the lever arm by almost 5 times. And that gives you a tremendous advantage to reduce it completely. And this case, of course, was attended by Dr. Vincent Trainellis because he wanted to see this technique. So initially, when we were handling joints and putting spacers, I would be very afraid to put more than 5 millimeters of spacers. But as and when we gained experience, we could put more larger spacers with complete safety. In fact, I put spacers up to 20 millimeters. And this goes and syncs with the saying of what Harv has written, saying that when you move beyond fear, you feel free. Few more example, 11-year-old bedridden boy. Again, you can see the wonderful correction obtained by placement of the spacer in the pseudo joint. And you can see DCR is a very, very good stabilizing technique. It leads to solid fusion. And then, of course, we devised our own spacers, which are biconvex, which goes along with the principle of DCR. We also devised spacer screws, which can connect to the spacers and the rod. And you can see how the spacer is connected to the rod here. And then we came across this case. So here you can see that once we reduced it, there was still significant dislocation between the clivus and the dens. So what do? We need some kind of a force which needs to push the C2 forward. So the question is, how can we devise that? So at this stage, think of a procedure which you would do if you are not afraid. And that's where we developed the universal reducer, So this is a system which can allow the C2 to be pushed forwards. And we developed this. So you can see, despite using the cable compression, the reduction is not good. But using this universal reducer, which that's how I developed it, that's a US patent along with Medtronics. So using this, we had a C2 translational screw, which would push the C2 forward. And this is without using the universal reducer. And this is using the universal reducer, where you can see this screw is used to push the C2 forward in order to obtain complete reduction. So understanding the old cheese was a transoral excision followed by instrumented fusion. The new cheese is a use of universal reducer, identifying the pseudo joints and also doing joint remodeling. And you can read more about this in my paper in Neurosurgical Focus, for which I was editor. I'll shortly show maybe a 1-minute video of how we are mobilizing.
3-point fixation, the smaller size space.
So we didn't get an enough reduction. So you can see this is a very severe.
And we are exposing the left. Here I am showing cervical fixation.
So in this case, this is the
I
pre-op.
can compare this with pre-op scans, and there has been a very good and a significant reduction. At this point, we fashioned the additional.
And you can see that we had placed almost
In
20
case we are
millimeters
not
of
able
spacer
to
in this
achieve
case.
optimum reduction, by
So I will
increasing the
skip
height
this
of-
for the lack of time. Vertebral artery is an injury, is an issue which I have encountered in 7 cases. So one must be ready with the anastomosis set. One should know exactly where the anatomy is. And this is a short video to show that how one can tackle the vertebral artery injury. So we need to suture it primarily by applying aneurysm clips on both the sides. And it's not so difficult to repair it at all. And once the vertebral artery is repaired, one can remove the clips and then continue with the drilling process. So one has to be aware of how to do this. In most of the cases, when the vertebral artery is on the joint, we need to mobilize the vertebral artery. We extended this for traumatic fractures, where we would drill out the complete C1 lateral mass and replace it with a facet joint, with a spacer, and then reduce it. Few examples to show this is the pre-op and post-op on how you can reduce it. And this is one of the extreme examples with severe compression, where we reduced it using a posterior technique only. And this is how it is fixed. So there is a uniform improvement in all the patients. And the advantage has been that the time of surgery is much less. You do not do 2 surgeries. The complication rates are less. The blood loss is less, as the time for discharge is also less. So the new cheese in CV junction, which we have developed, is a development of technique of DCR, and also understanding the slopiness of the joints and understanding that increasing the height of spacer can give you a liver advantage, and finally developing customized spacers and universal CV junction reducers. So the dream starts here of what you would do if you're not afraid. And going ahead, we developed a new retractor for endoscopic surgery. And here I would agree with what Professor Ashik Pathak has told in the last lecture, that we don't need a host of these instruments. They're mostly driven by market. And what we need is a good trajectory. And for some reason, I've never liked the binasal approach to the pituitary, because it really destroys the septum. And we are not justified in destroying this pristine surface in order to go from the nose on both the sides. And you can see this video. This was a redo pituitary, and you can see there is a complete atrophic rhinitis. It is a single nasal cavity, and this patient was having severe symptoms of atrophic rhinitis. And this is what we developed. We developed this new retractor called as Easy Track. We published it in the following papers. It's made of a special alloy. And I'll just show you a brief video on how this works. So we provide an incision. We go submucosally along the septum. So we go through a route which is well recognized by the surgeon. And once we raise the mucosal flap, we pass the Easy Track into this. So once it goes inside, we pull the ring which deploys the retractor. So you're exactly in the midline. It's an area, it's a highway to the pituitary. You know, going by the nose, I feel you're going through diversions, through bumpy roads. But when you're going along the septum, you're actually passing through the highway, and it leads you. So you go inside, and then you fracture the septum right at the keel of the vomer. And now you can see the very familiar anatomy. Now, because the retractor is very thin, dynamic, you can go to any area you want, and then rest of the surgery can proceed In the same manner, you expose the sella. And you can see at the end of surgery, when we pull out the retractor, we just bring the septum to one side and put a single stitch on the mucosa, and we do not use any nasal tampons. And you can see that rest of the nasal cavity is absolutely pristine. It's untouched. And in case you need a Haddard's flap, all you need to do is just cut the superior and the inferior part of the septum of this mucosal flap, and you will have an Haddard flap. Now, these are few examples where we did. You can see this large cranio, pre and post-op. And this again is another cranium which we had to stage it. This is a large giant where we used a customized retractor. So we found this to be expandable, uninostril, dynamic, spacious, making it easy, effective, and elegant. And we had a unofficial inauguration by Professor Charles Teo, Professor V.K. Jain, Professor Mahapatra, Professor Yadav, and Professor Suresh Nair. And this follows the Hirsch approach, which is exactly through the midline. Now, because of COVID, we were not able to bring out this. But right now I use an X-ray or an MRI film, and it works just as well. In fact, it's much better. So we fold the X-ray, make it into a V-shaped, cut one side, then again raise a mucosal flap. The incision is given at the mucocutaneous junction. Again raising a mucosal flap. And then instead of the easy track, we pass the X-ray film. This is absolutely non-reflectile. So it's very, very, in fact, I find it much better than the commercial one. And again, follow the same procedure. You go exactly on the midline to the keel of Vomer. So I think every surgeon who does skull-base surgery, even though he may not publish it, but he would find some ways by which he finds some new cheese. So most important, I think, in skull-base surgery is knowing when to stop. This was an example of a large pituitary tumor where the ICA was torn. We packed it with gel foam with Flosil. We came out, did an immediate angiogram which showed a large leak, and our radiologists were able to embolize it. And then we went later and removed the tumor. Understanding the techniques of tumor dissection, this cannot be compromised. Let it be in the skull base or let it be in the posterior fossa. This is an example of a large solid hemangioblastoma, one of the most challenging lesions. You can see it's highly vascular as seen on the ASL as well as T2-weighted images and angiogram. And most of these lesions cannot be embolized because they're fed by the pial feeders. So we attempted embolization, but we were not able to do it. Obviously, at the time of surgery, it's very important to understand the anatomy and then to know how to proceed with the tumor. So you have to go along the surface, cauterize it, find all the arterial feeder, cauterize the arterial feeder one after another, and finally coagulate the vein. So these are the techniques which cannot be compromised, and every skull-base surgeon or every neurosurgeon rather should know these techniques. And then the whole tumor is removed and blocked. That's a post-op scan showing total removal with some blood clot which resolved. Now, becoming comfortable working in small spaces. So initially we published this transciliary transorbital approach. Initially we would do, small aneurysms using this, like clipping this small ACOM aneurysm. But as we became comfortable, we went forward and started clipping larger aneurysms. So this is a complex ACOM aneurysm where we used a fenestrated perpendicular clip in order to recreate the wall and clip the aneurysm. And similarly, this was in case of a pediatrician, a large IC aneurysm, where again we put right angle perpendicular clips and we drilled the anticlinod transorbitally. So as you become comfortable and have a nice working learning curve, you would become more and more comfortable. Understanding the nuances of seventh nerve preservation, it's very important. Nowadays, it's possible even with big tumors. And finally, not forgetting your skills. So you can get a case like this where you have embolized basilar artery, which again there is a regrowth, and you may have asked to go and operate this. And this shows how we took out the coils and finally applied 2 clips on the coils. It was a very difficult case, but we were able to achieve it. And the post-op scan shows good clipping of the residual sac, regrown sac. Knowing when to do a bypass, again, this is a standard armamentarium for every skull-base surgeon, and not just doing a bypass, but doing correctly. using a nice foot plate in order to create a very good bypass happens to be one of the key tenets for skull-base surgery. Knowing the right approach, like told by Manmohan here, for instance, if you have a large cavernous sinus lesion, like a cavernous sinus meningioma in this case, you can say it's a large tumor. Again, doing the approach which Manmohan has shown a few minutes back, going extradurally, and finally delivering the tumor in toto after stripping it from the cavernous sinus. So coming to the end of the story, what happened to Howe? Howe found lots of new cheese in cheese station N, and he found it with Sniff and Scurry. And what happened to him? The book is kind of open about him. Possibly he followed the clues set by Howe and finally reaches to the cheese station N, which means he accepted to change. So what is this search for cheese? You would have now understood that cheese stands for a metaphor of what we want in life, whether it's a job, relationship, money, house, freedom, health, recognition, spiritual peace, or even just running, doing some jogging. Each of us have our own idea of what the cheese is, and we pursue it because we believe that it makes us happy. We can become attached to it, and separation can be traumatic. Finding new cheese should not prevent us from moving forward when the cheese becomes old. Maze is where we spend most of our time looking for what we want. It may be an organization that we work in, the relationships that we have in life, or the community that we live in. Often the corridors contain delicious cheese. Sometimes we may get into dark corridors, the blind alleys. We may get lost, but the quest for new cheese will put us right back into that track. So for me, the journey has been very long, but it has been worth it for strengthening old ties and making new friends. So this was my oration in Korea on CV Junction, and they had inaugurated a new wine bottle. So I was really touched by their gesture. And then, of course, making a host of friends and colleagues who have helped me to find more new cheese. And finally, last but not the least, this is my maze and my temple where we go around, moving around, searching for new cheese. And I hope you will also be able to join us in this journey of finding new cheese. Thank you very much. So cheese, as you know, is all about change. So change happens, be aware of it and adapt accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sharath, for very informative, impressive message, touching lot of pathology. You are shining star of neurosurgery galaxy.
Thank you.
And this is a oration, so we don't have question and answers. Thank you, Dr. Sharath.
Can I congratulate Dr. Sharath? I am Mathuria.
Thank you, sir.
Here.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sharath, I am really sorry that you presented the oration and I am not there in Jodhpur and the conference is held at my place. That is why I joined this oration right at 2 a.m. At 3:30 a.m. And I thought I must be there. It's an excellent philosophical lecture and all neurosurgeons must do it what you have done. If not, then probably we will fall behind.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Keep
you
it
so
up.
much.
Great oration.
Thank you, sir.
Sarath, do you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Sarath, I enjoyed your presentation, and what Dr. Mathuria has said, it is absolutely convincing, and we know all this, that you are one of the shining stars of neurosurgery of our country. You belong to us, you belong to me, and my best wishes to you. The cheese is still not very sour. We have to just go on after it, and I'm sure by the time you mature further in this business of neurosurgery, you will have a lot of cheese with you. And I congratulate you and I wish you all the best. Salam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Your oratory skills are excellent. I have to also add that very few people have that skill also, apart from a surgery. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again so much.
If Dr. Mishra is there, I'll request him to kindly honor Dr. Sharath. I am grateful to you, sir. Please don't mind my interference.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, chairpersons, and thank you, Dr. Sanjeev Mishra, for joining us on the stage. We will now break for lunch. There will be a parallel e-poster session in Hall B on the first floor during the lunch timings. Thank you. The next session in the Hall A will start at 2 p.m. sharp. Thank you.